Now bring in retired U.S. Army National Guard Major General John F. King and Behnam Ben Taleblu, Senior Director of the Iran Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Let me just play some sound right off the bat, because Iran is now vowing retaliation overnight as these attacks in Lebanon continue this morning. And here's what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say about that.
I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. The Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful.
General, your thoughts, when J.D. Vance there said that he does think that this was a misunderstanding, and what comes next if this disconnect continues?
Well, ultimately, Marky, it's going to be, first of all, we're going to have a great deal of actions taking place. The warring parties are going to be repositioning forces. The intelligence apparatus of all the players are going to be monitoring the movements of not only the Iranians. And so there's going to be a great deal. So the possibility for misunderstandings, for errors is very high, especially very early on in the stages of this, cessation of hostilities. And so it's a very tricky, very high tension environment. I think as the passage of time takes place and misunderstandings get clarified, I think we will have an opportunity for greater opportunity for more conversation. This is just the beginning of the conversation to end the hostility. This is not a peace agreement.
Behnam, you just heard the vice president sound there. According to Vance, the Israelis have offered to check themselves in Lebanon. What's your read on things? Are the White House and Israel on different pages on negotiations and how to end this war?
Great to be with you, Marky. In my view, no, not really. Rather, I think there is a classic play here by the Islamic Republic of Iran to agree to something in principle and do something else in practice. And the practice here is they're trying to save not just themselves, but their proxy in Lebanon. As you know, their proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, is one of their oldest and, in fact, most successful iterations of the export of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. It used to, prior to October 7, be conventionally one of the main sources of deterrence against Israel in the region. And so this is the Islamic Republic proving that it's weak, but it's still lethal at the same time and still up to the same old tricks. So ultimately here, I don't see this as a misunderstanding. I don't see this as a place or a time when the Israelis will be restraining themselves or, fundamentally changing the nature of the military mission, which they have recommenced in Lebanon. I see this as the Islamic Republic trying to get America to lean on Israel and play connect the dots in the region.
I mean, Robert, yesterday was the deadliest day of attacks in Lebanon that we have seen, since this latest Israel-Hezbollah war began. 182 people died. Has Israel said anything about why this had to happen the same night that a ceasefire was announced and agreed to?
Well, there's just this broader push that you have seen here, Marky, and I would say a more broad fed-upness that exists here in Israel when it comes to the situation in Lebanon and Hezbollah, because there have been all these conversations taking place with the international community involving the Lebanese government in order to disarm Hezbollah and keep them north of the Litani River, which is what the international community has said Hezbollah is not supposed to be near Israel's border in the north. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that has not happened, as we have seen here over the last few weeks, few months. And so Israel has, you have seen some of the largest evacuation orders that we have seen over the last couple of weeks, pushing many of the civilians out of southern Lebanon to the north, as they have vowed in order to clear out Hezbollah once and for all. And I would say, by and large, there is strong support for the operations against Iran here in Israel. There are also strong support here in Israel for the operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon, because you have seen these flare-ups again and again reiterating themselves, especially since October 7th. And there really is, a sense of enough is enough in the Israeli community. So for the time being, as long as the ceasefire holds in Iran, attentions are pretty focused on Hezbollah right now.
General, let's talk enriched uranium. That is a hard line for President Trump. Pete Hegseth yesterday claimed it's still buried. We're watching it, and maybe we just go in and get it. I'm curious what you think next steps are in regards to the uranium, and would that require boots on the ground to extract it?
I think it would require a limited, very highly specialized force that understands the risk associated with removing any kind of material. But also, obviously, it's going to be a limited force, and that has to be part of the byproduct of the ceasefire. I think the United States has been very clear that this is a hard. There's no negotiating off the table of the Iranians being able to maintain a possession of nuclear materials.
Behnam, nobody wants war. Nobody is, salivating, if you will, to have boots on the ground. But if we know that enriched uranium is there, and we know what the Iranians' intentions are with it, the same regime that chants death to Israel, death to America, why haven't we just gone in yet to get it? What's your take on that?
Well, in terms of dealing with what's left of the fissile material, there's about 3 pathways available to the president. The first is that the one that he seems to be taking already, which is to push away from the table, rely on intelligence, and in particular intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, the satellite assets that he referred to last week, knowing where the uranium was prior to the start of the 12-day war, prior to the start of Operation Midnight Hammer, which is in places like Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan, places that the U.S. struck, and push away from the table and say, hey, if we see the Iranians going there and extracting this material, if we see them tunneling out, then we'll just hit them again, and that'll be easier. And that gets the president's more recent tweet or post where he said they'll be keeping forces in the region until there's an actual agreement. So that's number one. Number two is part of that quote-unquote actual agreement, something that could be reached in 2 weeks. The Iranians could hand it over or give it to the International Atomic Energy Agency. That's probably very, very low probability, but a high-impact situation. And the third gets to the operational risks and challenges of doing such a thing. I mean, the last time the U.S. went in and took out fissile material, perhaps of this scale, perhaps of a bit less, is in Kazakhstan after the end of the Cold War, taking out their fissile material. The challenge there is that you had a friendlier government and it wasn't in the middle of a war zone. Here you don't necessarily have a friendly government. You have one that also happens to chant, as long as it's been chanting death to Israel, it chants death to America as well. Right. And you just had a major war like the one you saw. So operationally, going in and getting it would be challenging. I mean, U.S. forces just proved again how effective they are, how they can always choose to surprise the adversary when they need to. But also in some of these sites, you'd have to dig. You'd have to bring in digging equipment into a war zone to extract this material and then ferry it out. I mean,
and you can't just do that overnight.
Problem.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Joe, we're all wanting to know what comes next. I was struck yesterday by that Pentagon press briefing where War Secretary Pete Hegseth essentially said, for now, the War Department's work is done. They're taking a step back for a moment. He declared this as victory with a capital V. I'm curious what your White House sources, Washington sources are telling you. So does that mean we're not expecting any more updates from Hegseth and Kane moving forward?
I'm not sure. I mean, they said that the military operation is done for now. And he caveated that twice, for now. And then you've got President Trump, again, saying that all military assets are going to remain around Iran until we see the carrying out of their side of this ceasefire agreement. So I think what it appears to be is that the White House, I think, it was less bullish than the military leaders were on this being a total victory. Again, what you heard from J.D. Vance and from the press secretary about this still being a fragile state of affairs right now. But it does seem like both the White House and the Pentagon are at least leaving all options on the table. And to your point, the discussion you were just having, Hegseth also said that the U.S. will retrieve one way or another, as he put it, that nuclear material, which may necessarily mean that there is more left for the military to do if Iran does not voluntarily hand over its enriched material, which they've given no indication that they're willing to do that, at least not yet. Maybe something of a development comes along on Saturday after their meeting face to face. But so far, we haven't seen that. So it seems like we sort of have to see what happens, in the next couple of days here. And I think that's going to determine whether or not the military's job is actually done here. And despite the secretary claiming victory with a capital V, there may very well still be military operation in the near future.
Yeah, it seems like both sides are still very far apart on several of these items here. Behnam Ben Taleblu, Major General John F. King, along with Robert Sherman, Joe Khalil, thank you all so very much for your time and perspective this morning.